Welcome back to the Pleb Underground, everyone. I am your host, Phil. We are the signal without the slop, guys. Hope you had a great weekend. We've got a lot of stories to cover. On Friday, we had an awesome interview and with David Foley, co-founder of Bitcoin Opportunity Fund. And yeah, we didn't get to cover much news. So we are going to do that today. We got some news that we did not end up covering. So we're going to do that. And let's dive into what we are going to be looking at. The end of paper Bitcoin summer. Is it actually near? I'm going to show you a chart that might have some people thinking, the legacy stuff is kind of over for this cycle. Doesn't mean that all these people go away. They don't go away. It just means that maybe things have cooled off for a little bit. Just maybe. Or it could be false signals. We'll see. I promised that I was going to talk about the UK getting digital IDs last week, and in typical Phil fashion, I screwed that up. So we are going to talk about it today. David Marcus, right? The guy who was responsible for that Facebook Libra token. He said some bullish stuff about Bitcoin. So now a bunch of people are excited. And as you know, I like to temper the excitement with reality and reminding people that we're here in clown world. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Argentina getting access to one of the best Bitcoin exchanges. That's right. So there's very few exchanges that I enjoy and that I think are great. And yeah, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of this. We're going to talk about that. EV charging giant accepting Bitcoin. It's definitely a good move, right? I'm not trying to shit on it. I just think it's funny the way that things are framed. The SEC. Guess what, guys? The memes make themselves. The SEC is here. They're new to Bitcoin. And they're going to fix it, okay? We're going to see how. And last but not least, another bank is going to revive its crypto custody. Nobody cares. Anyways, guys, before we dive into these stories, you know the deal. We're going to show some love to the Pleb Underground sponsor. I am glad because I've started this show this week off already not muted, so this is good. We're going to be right back to dive into all these stories. Here we go. Pleb Underground is sponsored by Archimedes Emporium. Discover the pinnacle of precision engineering, starting with their Bitcoin logo wall clock, meticulously machined in Maine from a solid block of aerospace-grade aluminum, ensuring unparalleled durability and performance. Experience the difference of a product made without compromise. Head on over to Archimedes Emporium. All right, let's get started right away. We're going to cover the story that I was supposed to cover last week, right? That I completely forgot. Anyways, Labor considering digital ID cards to stop migrants working illegally in the UK. Kind of contradictory there. Anyways, a source told the Daily Express the government has a duty to explore whether digital IDs can help end Britain's immigration crisis. Ah, yes, the digital IDs. Just more control is going to help stop this. So the ministers are honing in on proposals to introduce ID cards to stop migrants working illegally in the UK. The government was looking at introducing national ID cards to stop illegal migrants working in the black economy. We're willing to look at what works when it comes to tackling illegal immigration. Now, that, of course, sounds wonderful, right? It makes the average person, the citizen who believes in the state, regardless of what state it is, it makes them feel good, right? It makes them feel like, hey, look, the government's looking out for my best interests, this and that. Spoiler alert. Yeah, this is not, IDs are not going to stop, quote unquote, illegal immigration, okay? Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, we have history that we get to look back at, and we get to take a look at different campaigns to stifle or stop certain behavior. And what we end up with years later, okay, is more administrative bodies, more administrative spend, inefficient, actual inefficient processes that actually perform these tasks. And in the end, they don't actually make a meaningful dent in any of this. And unfortunately, right, this idea to do this type of thing always is in the framing of the greater good. Oh, we're trying to stop, people from working on the quote unquote black market through digital ID. So you really think that the person that is attempting to enter anywhere, quote unquote, illegally, you really think that they're going to go out and get an ID? And the reason why I say this is because as a Canadian, I was born before they created the gun registry, okay, in Canada. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar with this, but like 20, 30 years ago, I don't remember anymore because I'm old, Canadian government in its infinite wisdom spent like $3.5 billion, which I know today is not a lot of money, okay? But back then it was a lot of money, but they spent $3.5 billion putting together this gun registry, right? To essentially help stifle, violent crime, gun crime. Now, the interesting thing about this was that for some reason, it seems as though the government in its infinite wisdom did not realize that the only people that would be registering their firearms were not criminals. It was hunters. It was people who shoot for sport. So what they ended up with was a giant registry of law-abiding citizens putting in their data. Now, of course, you can argue that was the whole point, right? That was indeed the entire point, was to do this in order to gain more data, right? Like to be able to amass that data and have more quote unquote control. But the point is that it didn't actually stifle any gun crime at all, because a criminal isn't going to go register their gun. So anyways, that's why this type of stuff, it's always a slippery slope. It is always done under the guise of helping the little guy, the greater good. And I am not saying that there aren't things that actually do help society. There are, unfortunately. What happens is that we borrow the credibility from the things that actually work in order to implement the things that don't work. So anyways, okay, I will stop with the ID thing. You can see the ID thing triggers me. Okay, done. No more triggering with the ID stuff. Let's move on to some good news, right? Argentina making me jealous. Francis, when are you gonna set up Bull Bitcoin in the States? Anyways, okay. So as you guys know, Bull Bitcoin now live in Argentina. So congratulations to Argentinians for now having a better Bitcoin exchange than we have here in the States. I'm not crying. You're crying. And I'm not mad. You're mad. Okay. You're the one that's mad. It's not me. All right. Moving on. Let's go take a look. Yes. The global, or the charging giant, Blink Charging Company, a leading global owner-operator provider, electric vehicle equipment and services, today announced innovative move to integrate cryptocurrency payments. And yes, that means Bitcoin and other cryptos across the Blink network. So their reasoning behind this, which kind of makes sense, right? I don't think they're wrong about this, but the CEO explained that people tending to buy EVs are quote unquote forward-looking thinkers, and they're more likely to adopt new technology. So as a result, Blink thinks this is a natural fit. I can't disagree. Let's see what happens. Let's see if it stays, right? Because unfortunately, we have seen a lot of this type of stuff. And as we will see later about the US bank story, we've seen many big players come to the stage. They set up their infrastructure, and then, maybe a year later or so, they decide, that the hype that they bought into wasn't worth it, and maybe they need to roll back, their offering. I'm not saying Blink EV is going to do that. I'm just saying that that's the kind of thing that happens. Okay, that's too bad, but that is what happens. Anyways, okay, so let's take a look at how about the SEC and quantum. This is great. I love it when I genuinely feel when I see stuff like this, right, that it reminds me of being in elementary school and being in a play. Like go stand on the stage. All right, you're going to dress up as the giant. Okay, you're going to play this part. That stuff makes me laugh. The SEC reviews proposals to make Bitcoin and crypto quantum resistant. Spoiler alert, the SEC has absolutely no control, no say, nothing over what happens in the Bitcoin space. Now, granted, quantum is quite a few years away. Okay, we've multiple times I've already debunked essentially what quantum's capabilities actually are at the moment. And again, of course, not that we have to repeat this 1,000 times, but I guess we do. The reality is that if Bitcoin is vulnerable to quantum attack, then guess what? Everything else, we're in trouble. Okay, we're in trouble. So it's not good. Oh, wait, hold on a second here. We got a comment going back to our Blink story. Hey, Robert, what's going on? Blink blows. Their chargers are always broken. Damn. Yeah, I've never actually. I don't have an EV, so I have no idea. Thank you for sharing this. Anyways, okay, back to the SEC Quantum. Yeah, they're here. They're going to fix this. So what ended up happening over here, the post-quantum financial infrastructure framework. They're really good at creating these titles and creating these acronyms. It really makes you feel important. Now, for the people who aren't familiar with Discordianism or Discordians, right? Discordians make fun of this. Like, this is essentially the term for this is called fnorting. Okay, and it's just essentially it's management speak. Right? This is what this is. So it's just pretending that you're actually doing something and putting very powerful words to it. So it sounds like great things are going to happen. So post-quantum financial infrastructure framework, right? The executive summary. And who is it that's going to be doing this? Who is it? A proposed framework for the quantum safe U.S. digital ecosystem. Oh my God, wait a second. Is that, am I reading that right? Is that the crypto assets task force? Or wait a second, weren't Bitcoiners cheering that last week this thing was, or 2 weeks ago, wasn't it being stopped? And I'm pretty sure that I pointed out that no, the crypto task force isn't going away. I just simply explained, because people who have had jobs in corporations understand how this works. They build a task force. They gather the data. They then go through their findings. They then incorporate those findings into their standard process. Oh, no way. Standard process. No one saw that coming. Oh my God. Hopium dealers in disbelief. So yeah, again, though, this it's just fun. They're not going to do anything with this. It doesn't make a difference. I really just chose this story to poke fun at the people who thought that it was a giant win that the crypto task force is now going to be taken away and disbanded. Nope, none of that's happening. All they did was put on a new costume. That's all it is. New costume. Okay, new costume for the show. All right, moving on. Let's go take a look at. All right, we'll do the David Marcus story. Let's see what he had to say.
I come from the future, and I'm here to tell you corp chains are not the way. And I know because I started Libra, and it failed. Most people thought it was killed because it was started at Meta. But that's wrong. It was killed because one corporate-controlled network was about to control global payments at the scale of billions of people globally. You'll tell me times have changed, regulation is clearer now, we're in a different world. But I don't think.
I just want to point out that was killed by the government, right? Like, we'll get into that after, but you gotta imagine, right, that banks, right, are not going to allow a company like Facebook that had at the time over 3 billion users instantly become the most powerful payment network in a second. Okay, so he's not wrong about that. Just pointing that out.
Because one corporate-controlled network was about to control global payments at the scale of billions of people globally. You'll tell me times have changed, regulation is clearer now, we're in a different world. But I don't think so. If a centrally controlled corp chain was to control 30 or 40% of inbound and outbound payments to very big countries like Brazil or the European Union or India, do you think the central bankers and the regulators of that country would let an American-controlled corp chain control that? No. They would go after it, and they would be able to kill it because it's centrally controlled. And when one big company creates a corp chain, what do you think rivals will do? They will all create their own corp chain. So,
which we're totally seeing right now, right? We're absolutely seeing it. I've reported on this multiple times. The CEO of SoftBank himself said that we're going to be custodying Bitcoin. But what we're really excited about are the banks getting together to make their own tokens. Okay. And that's just the CEO of SoftBank or KeyBank or KeyCorp, whatever. Anyways.
We'll have dozens and dozens of corp chains that won't be interoperable with one another, trapping liquidity, creating inefficiencies.
We're going to have that.
This is not the way. It's pretty clear it's going to create a bunch of subscale fragmented networks that are just going to replace the setup of our current financial system and payment networks with new leaders that are going to be the new gatekeepers of a very similar system. And that's kind of not really inspirational to me. So what's the anti-corp chain? The best anti-corp chain is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the most neutral form of money ever created. And it's digital, permissionless, decentralized, unopinionated. It's really the true TCP/IP for money that we've all been waiting for. And the problem is it couldn't do a bunch of different things that other chains were created to basically fill in the gap for.
Oh, nice. He's about to fix Bitcoin. I love this. I love people who come to fix Bitcoin.
It couldn't do real-time settlement at scale. It couldn't do stablecoin support. It couldn't do all kinds of different things. But that has changed in a really profound way in the last 12 months or so. And if you connect fast and real-time Bitcoin to all of the domestic real-time payment systems in the world, you create a neutral, interoperable layer between payment systems that work really well domestically, but really very poorly when you need to send money from one to the other. My unshakable conviction is that Bitcoin is the only network that is neutral and decentralized enough to become the standard TCP/IP for money, and on which we collectively can build an open internet for money that the world so badly needs.
Okay, so look, he's saying all the wonderful things, right? I mean, all of that is amazing, right? You're looking at this guy. Hey, look, rich guy from Meta comes over, loves Bitcoin, wants to build on Bitcoin. I tried to do this through the corporations and, the evil banksters and the government shut me down. So here I am working on Bitcoin out in the open, right? It's open and free. So I'm a good guy, right? And that's fine. I don't have any issues with that whatsoever. But I just want to point out, right, that let's go back. We're going to take a look at some of the history here, right? So David Marcus was the co-founder and leader of Facebook's ambitious cryptocurrency project, Libra. As I said before, over 3 billion people would have been onboarded instantly. The project was later branded DM and Novi, but it was ultimately shut down in 2022 due to intense regulatory and political pressure. I've talked about this in the past. For the people that don't know this, Walmart had attempted to make a bank probably 25 years ago. They spent millions of dollars petitioning. They spent millions of dollars lobbying, okay? Walmart was denied entry at every corner because the banks were making, one of the reasons is because the banks were making absolutely so much money off of the volume. People forget, or sometimes people don't think about how these networks are so incredibly profitable. It has to do with the volume of transactions. One of the reasons is the volumes of transactions. So, this is, you think like they're going to block Walmart, okay? Walmart wanted to make their own bank too, and they couldn't. So you think that they wouldn't be, you think the government and the banks wouldn't be getting together to block Facebook from making the biggest network? So back in 2019, right, that's when Libra was launched, okay? And to allay concerns about Facebook having sole control, this is funny. This is a great LARP. The cryptocurrency was to be governed by an independent consortium called the Libra Association. The group included major partners like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and Uber. So, I mean, look, it's all just traditional rails, right? All of that was just traditional rails. So, interestingly enough, after that video came out, there started to be some comments that popped up. So I just wanted to show this thread here where David Marcus goes, received my first ever USD stablecoin transaction on Bitcoin Spark, right? Spark is the company that he created now. In my Xverse wallet, which enables Lightning payments. I'll pass the buck forward to a few folks if you send your Spark address in comments here. So CoinJoin Chris, friend to the show. We've had also a former guest on the show. He said, consider using a different address format, SP4, like Spark4 instead of SP1, which is already used by Silent Payments. So he's talking about building on the open Bitcoin, right, on the Bitcoin network and all of this freedom and stuff. So now Matt Corallo, who is a programmer for Bitcoin, wrote back and goes, "We pointed this out to them a few months ago, and Lightspark said they were going to change it to avoid causing issues. Guess they never got around to it." So, it's great. It's great when you see, some of these guys say all the wonderful words that they're willing to build on Bitcoin. But when you see behavior like this, where people are extending an olive branch and genuinely attempting to work with them and saying, "Hey, listen, you built this address format. We're already using this for something else. Would you mind working with us to change it? Or we're happy to work with you to change it." Oftentimes, unfortunately, you'll see lip service like this, and they're just going to go and do whatever they wanted to do anyways. So it's a little bit disappointing. Now, granted, it doesn't mean that, between now and, some future date, David Marcus sees what is happening and decides, okay, let me speak to my team and get this rolled back. There's a possibility of that, right? Yeah, BTC pins. I agree. These companies are so thirsty to make a product for their money, but they can juice Bitcoin and win, and that's exactly right. And again, obviously, we have no problems with anybody coming to the Bitcoin space and deciding to build a product or anything like that that's offering some type of value, right? If you believe that something is valuable and you're willing to pay for it, that's you're entitled to that. However, at the same time, right, we can't ignore that there are many centralizing forces. I think that there's going to be people that are increasingly going to realize that the base layer of Bitcoin is practically impossible to capture. So what's going to happen is we are most likely going to see incredible battles on the layers above. So, yeah. We'll see what happens there. Okay, moving on here. We're going to take a look at the paper Bitcoin summer. Come on, we gotta have some paper Bitcoin summer. I don't really care about reporting on companies that keep adding. I more appreciate the new companies that are creating Bitcoin treasuries. So I thought that this was actually pretty interesting. Here's a tweet from Charles Edwards, pretty big account. Treasury company demand continues to collapse. The companies are still staunchly buying, but the rate of companies purchasing per day continues to fall. Are institutions exhausted, or is it just a dip? Now, let's take a look at the chart that he used for this. Okay, so I know we're all going blind, but essentially, okay, this blue line all the way at the bottom over here, right? These are the companies that are purchasing that are purchasing Bitcoin. And again, right, these numbers, right, they come from this guy's own reporting service and stuff like that. So I guess you could say take it with a grain of salt. However, if we're going to look at the chart for what it is, you can clearly see, right, that there was a peak, massive announcements of new companies buying Bitcoin, and a very steep drop off. Now, does that actually mean anything? No, it doesn't. To me, I don't actually buy that it's like, oh no, it's the end. Like I was saying right at the beginning, like, is this the end of paper summer Bitcoin? Like, look, these were the people that came to the space and wanted to be here first, wanted to jump in first, wanted to use whatever dog, trick, and pony show they wanted to create hype. It doesn't make a difference. But the point is, these people were here. That's what they wanted to be. They wanted to be the first people here, and they got it. Right now, we're starting to see things settle, right? It's just like in life, right? Things ebb and flow. Nothing abnormal. So I don't actually believe that, oh no, this signals the beginning of the end. I don't think it does that, right? We're just seeing like, okay, the initial exuberance is now tapering off. And now it's going to be time to start seeing who can actually do what. Or I should say, which companies can actually survive this. Now, finally, they're back. U.S. Bancorp partners with NYDIG for Bitcoin custody service. The SEC's previous guidance made crypto custody capital intensive for banks, as we all know, but we know with the Clarity Act and all that good stuff, the doors are open. Everybody can custody everything. Everybody's going to make their own blockchains, and we're going to get ready for a crazier version of the 2017 ICO boom. So it looks like U.S. Bancorp is restarting their Bitcoin custody service after more than a 3-year pause because, let's be honest, there most likely wasn't enough customers. That's, it's sad as it is, right? It wasn't lucrative for them to do it. And so They put the infrastructure in place, they turned it on, and now they can turn it off. So look, to me, like I appreciate, right, that larger businesses like this coming to the stage and offering their services. I'm just not holding my breath for them, to be here forever. All right, let's see what Bangerang. What are you saying here? The treasury company hype is over already. No, just for now. Yeah, exactly right. Yes, that was. Thank you for bringing that up. So look, a lot of these companies, they haven't even finished their mergers, right? Like they haven't even completed the mergers yet. They're not even using their new ticker symbols yet or anything. Again, I'm not saying that is a reason to go and purchase shares of this stuff or anything like that. I'm just saying the story is unfolding. Okay, so I'm always very weary of of people pronouncing something as completely dead at the moment, or that's it, it's completely over. Don't forget, right? There's an entire website dedicated to how many times Bitcoin has died, right? Documenting every single instance that Bitcoin has died. And guys, you'd be surprised. Bitcoin has already been dead several times this year. And here we are. So zoom out. Don't listen to all of this noise. Guys, this is all I wanted to talk about today. Have a great rest of the day. And you know the deal. We're going to be back tomorrow. Back tomorrow to dispel some FUD, give you more signal without the slop. Join me then. Take it easy. Peace.